Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Chan, Mr. Dinsdale, and Ms. Curran. It's great to see you here. Thank you for coming. Three quick things. First, I think the email between Mr. Chan and Mr. Ripley has been adequately dealt with. Second, I greatly appreciate Facebook's recent decision to ban Holocaust denial on its platform. And I also appreciate your quarterly transparency reports. And I wish that other platforms would do the same. And third, many of my constituents and I share a real frustration about the growing amount of anti-Semitism on the platform and the lack of response with respect to complaints that are made. And I'd request to have a call with you guys on that separately, if that's okay. So I have a lot of questions, and if you can answer in one word, yes or no, or briefly, that would be great. And if not, I'll ask you to follow up in writing. So there's about 2.5 billion people that are regular users of Facebook, about 23 million in Canada, and a number of those people do post messages that violate Facebook policies. Would you agree that Facebook has an obligation to deal with that content, Mr. Chen?
We have a responsibility to remove anything that violates our community standards. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And you'd agree also that the people that you employ in content moderation play a very important role in that, correct?
The 35,000 people that work on content moderation at Facebook, yes, they do play an important role, sir.
And you'd agree, of course, that nuance is important, and it's important for people to understand the language the post was made in and the political realities of that country when they assess whether something violates the policies, correct?
Correct. That is why you have a public policy team in Canada, sir.
So can I ask the question, in terms of the 35,000 people that do content moderation, how many of them are based in Canada?
I'm not sure, sir, that I'm able to give that answer, but as I indicated, I think what you're asking is who at Facebook actually is making sure they understand the nuances, for example, in Quebec, where you represent, sir, but also elsewhere in the country. And in fact, the public policy team in Canada, while many have speculated about where we spend most of our time, I'm pleased to share with you that the team in Canada is actually the tip of the spear, if you will, on understanding these things. We are the ones that bring back the local, political, and cultural context back to ensure that our community standards are enforced accordingly.
But Mr. Chen, I'm sure you'd understand that if Mr. Zuckerberg was before the US Congress and was asked how many people of the content moderators were based in the United States, and he wasn't able to give an answer. For example, I could argue that there's probably less than 100, probably less than 50 of the content moderators who actually have a lot of discretion are based in Canada. I think you'd find that unacceptable, and I would make a request that going forward, Facebook take it to head office that we need more content moderators in Canada. Let me go into another question.
We will undertake to do that, sir. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chen.
Thank you.
Does Facebook control what is in my news feed through your algorithms?
No, sir. Actually, the way it works is people positively connect. They choose to connect with friends and family or to organizations. So, for example, perhaps your Facebook page. And then what newsfeed does is just it sorts the content that individuals have already chosen to connect to.
No, I understand that. But if I, for example, choose to search for white supremacy, or I choose to search for swastikas, Facebook is going to have an algorithm that, or whatever you use, I would think it's an algorithm to determine that this is my area of interest. So would it not that mean that Facebook would be, on some occasions, inadvertently, of course, proactively amplifying hate speech or incitement to violence?
I don't think so, sir, but let me turn to Rachel, because she's been working very closely with CJA and other organizations on this very matter when you search for these kinds of terms on Facebook. Rachel, would you care to answer?
Yeah, that's a great question, MP Housefather. So what we have done, and we announced this on Holocaust Remembrance Day this week, is if you search for those kinds of terms, if you search for terms that are related to the Holocaust, swastika, white supremacy, you are going to get a notification that directs you to an off-site website developed with the World Jewish Congress that gives you credible information on the Holocaust. So users will get a notification on Facebook that says, go to this site, and they will get good information on the Holocaust, accurate information on the Holocaust that explains what actually happened, explains the horrific events around the Holocaust, and they will immediately have access to that information when they search for those kinds of terms.
That's really appreciated. And I noted, and I'm sure you guys read, that that there was a Wall Street Journal article in 2016 that a number of my colleagues in the US Congress referred to that talked about an internal Facebook study that said that 64% of members of violent groups became members because of the platform's recommendations. And Mr. Zuckerberg had stated that Facebook had changed its policies and that Facebook was now proactively referring such threats to local law enforcement. And I was wondering if you would be able to tell us over the last 12 months how many threats Facebook has proactively referred to local law enforcement in Canada.
We don't have that information on us, sir. I think a lot of this is actually available in our transparency reports in terms of how many takedowns and requests we've done with law enforcement. But we don't have that. We don't have that answer.
I couldn't find that, but if you could maybe perhaps give that to the committee, that would be great. Another question: on November 5th, 2020, Steve Bannon, President Trump's former strategist, did a Facebook Live where he called for the beheadings of FBI Director Christopher Wray and Dr. Fauci. The video was removed, but I saw yesterday that Steve Bannon is still allowed on Facebook. Wouldn't you say that calling for the assassination of public figures be grounds to remove somebody from your platform?
Well, again, I did not see that report, sir, so I cannot comment on it. But certainly, if you wish to forward it to us, we're happy to take a look at it.
Thank you very much. And very much. My last question, in the last U.S. election, Facebook assisted in registration of voters, assisted in recruitment of poll workers, helped provide voter information, and Mr. Zuckerberg and his wife actually donated $400 million to help support safe voting. What is Facebook planning to do in terms of supporting voting in Canada? And if there's $400 million somewhere to give to Elections Canada, I'm sure they would be very grateful.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Obviously, I don't think I'm in a position yet to announce what our integrity measures will be for the upcoming or next federal election, but I can tell you that the team has already turned its mind to it, and both internally but also externally with external partners. And again, I think that speaks to the need for us to work across sectors to make sure that we get what we all want, which is free and fair elections.
Thank you.